We are today on exercise number 3 of short passages and question number 5. Let me read the passage. A population of game ducks at Western Lake contains 55 males to every 45 females, while a population of game ducks at an Eastern Lake contains 65 males for every 35 females. Among those ducks that have not yet bred, there are only slightly more males than females, but among older ducks the number of males greatly exceeds the number of females. Because there are appreciably more males among adult ducks than among young ducks, we can infer that the greater the disparity in overall sex ratios, the greater the percentage of older male ducks in the population. Now, there are going to be a number of short passages where you might be getting statistical information. The test maker is not asking you to do any kind of a mathematical, task here. You're not asked to do any kind of, calculations. But when you have these kind of statistical information, it makes sense for you to do what is called as basic notes. Every time you write your test, you have a scratch paper or rough paper given to you with a pencil. So in this kind of a argument, where you have statistical information, then it makes sense to make some very basic short notes. So here you have information about 2 lakes and the game ducks which are in these 2 lakes. So we have the Western Lake and we have the Eastern Lake, and we have the male and the female ducks and the male and the female ducks. So let us put the information here. He says at the Western Lake, for 55 males there are 45 females. So for 55 males there are 45 females. Now in the Eastern Lake we are told for 65 males there are 35 females. So for 65 males there are 35 females. This is a basic information. This is the sex ratio. Then he gives us some conditions. Among those ducks that have not yet bred, there are only slightly more males than females. But among older ducks, the number of males greatly exceeds the number of females. So among those ducks that have not yet bred, if they have not yet bred, they are very young ducks. So among the population where the ducks are very young, they have not yet bred, he says very clear, there are only slightly more males than females. Where do you have slightly more males than females? Right? And then he goes on and says, among older ducks, the number of males greatly exceeds the number of females. So the first inference we can draw is more number, or not number, more younger male ducks. Where do we have this? In the Western Lake. Here, because the disparity is more, then we can say there are more older male ducks. Right? And then he goes on and says, because there are appreciably more males among adult ducks than among young ducks, we can infer the greater the disparity in overall sex ratios, the greater the percentage. Look at what he says, the greater the percentage of older male ducks in the population. So it cannot be more older male ducks, it should be more percentage of older male ducks, more percentage of younger male ducks. We have to be very clear here. Okay. Now, which one of the following can be inferred from the passage? What is an inference? It's a minor conclusion. Now, let us take those options which we can discard. For example, option E. Adult female game ducks outnumber non-adult female game ducks in the Eastern Lakes population. We are not given any information about the female ducks. So we cannot either say this is true or false. So this can be ruled out. D says the number of non-adult ducks hatched in a breeding season is higher in the Eastern Lakes population than the Western Lakes population. How many are being hatched? How many are not being hatched? And then we are also talking about number. If you take option C and D, the total number of male game ducks is higher, and D says the number of non-adult ducks, I am going to rule out. Why? Because this argument is only talking about ratio and percentages. Now we cannot infer from that the actual number. Suppose if I were to say, for example, in option C, the total number of male game ducks is higher in the Eastern Lakes population when compared to Western Lakes population, it sounds pretty correct. Because here you have for every 65 males only 35, and here you have just 55 is to 45. So to say there are more number of older male ducks here is looking logical, but you see, percentages cannot be compared with total numbers, because you see, we don't know the actual total number of ducks which are living in both the lakes. Suppose in this particular lake there are, let's say, 2,000 ducks totally, and in this lake there are, let's say, 1,000 ducks totally. Now you'll see, you can't talk about the total numbers, because 55 is to 45 means there is more number of, that means how many? 1100 male ducks. Here 65 is to 35, 650 male ducks. You got that? So you see, you cannot infer the numbers. Percentages and numbers should not be confused. Percentages and numbers should not be confused. For example, if I were to say A spends 10% of his income on groceries. This is something I did before. B spends 20% of his income on groceries. From this, can I say definitely that the amount B spends is double that of what A spends? Can I say this as my conclusion? Can I? Though B is spending 20% and A is spending 10% of his income, can I therefore come to the conclusion that B is spending 2 times the amount that A is spending? Why? Why? Because we have no idea about their actual income. We cannot. The assumption made here to come to this conclusion is that both A and B earn the same income. Is it given here anywhere as a fact? It is not. When if it is not given there as a fact, one cannot therefore assume it and say therefore B is spending double that of A. If A's income is, let's say, 1 lakh per month and B's income is 50,000 per month, how much are they spending each? The same amount. 20% of 50,000 is the same as 10% of 1 lakh. So percentages are given, but you cannot from that draw conclusion about the actual number. You can only talk about the ratio and proportion and percentages. You can't go to the number. So option C, which says the total number of male ducks is higher in the Eastern Lakes population than in the Western Lakes population, is a inference that one cannot safely draw. It's to be discarded. Now between A and B, A says the population of game ducks in the Western Lake contains a lower percentage of adult males. Now let's look at the Western Lake. The population at Western Lake contains a lower percentage of adult males than the population of the Eastern Lake. And B says the population of game ducks of the Eastern Lake contains a higher percentage of non-adult game ducks. Now we have here more adult male ducks in the Eastern Lake. So therefore the answer A is the best of the lot, because B is not an inference. A says the population of game ducks at the Western Lake contains a lower percentage because it has more younger male ducks, more percentage of younger male ducks. The inference to be drawn is it has a less percentage of older male ducks. And that is what option A is telling us. So A is our answer. A is our answer. Going to the 6th question. The common procedure for determining whether a food additive should be banned from use is to compare its health-related benefits with its potential risks. Yellow dye number 5, an additive used to color lemon soda, might cause allergic reactions in a few consumers. For most consumers of lemon soda, however, the coloring enhances the enjoyment of the beverage. This particular additive should not be banned, therefore, because its benefits greatly outweigh its risks. What is an additive? It's not an addictive, it's an additive added to the food to enhance its flavors. You know, for example, like here, this lemon soda, they are adding a color to it to enhance its flavor. Sometimes you add something else. So here, how do you decide whether to have a particular additive or not, or to ban it, is based on what? On its health-related benefits and comparing it with its potential risks. That is health-related risks. Now he tells us about one particular example about this yellow dye number 5. When you add it to lemon soda, what is it causing? What is it causing among some consumers? An allergic reaction. But this argument is saying, but most consumers of lemon soda, however, the coloring enhances the enjoyment of the beverage because the drink looks beautifully yellow. They enjoy it, drinking it much more. Because of which the argument says, this particular additive should not be banned, therefore, because its benefits greatly outweigh its risk. What is the risk? What is the risk of this particular? Yes, absolutely. So the risk of this additive, the risk is allergy. The benefit is enjoyment of the drink. Therefore, what is the conclusion? It should not be banned because more number of people are having this enjoyment, very few people are having the allergic reaction. He says, therefore, we should not ban this additive. Now the question is, a flaw in the argument is that the author. Now we are asked to find out what is the flaw in the argument. What is the flaw? It's a mistake in reasoning. The conclusion reached is the dye should not be banned because its benefits outweigh its risks. Now the point is, when do you ban an additive? Based on the health-related risks. But here, there is a health-related risk. There is an allergic reaction among a few people. But most people enjoy the drink, he says, because of the color. Therefore, he says you should not ban it. So what is the mistake he is making in reasoning? I would always look at the fact that he thinks most probably that if I am going to enjoy the drink, possibilities I may not get the allergy. Not necessary, isn't it? I may enjoy the drink, but still I may get an allergic reaction because enjoyment of the drink is not a health benefit. It's something you're enjoying. It's not going to give me any kind of a protection from allergy. That is the basic error or flaw in the argument. So the flaw in the argument is that the author, what do you think? I would go with B. Treats enjoyment of a beverage as a health-related benefit. You may enjoy the drink, but still you may have the risk of allergic reaction. So B is the basic flaw. The 7th question. Fines levied against those responsible for certain environmentally damaging accidents are now so high that it costs a company responsible for such an accident more to pay the fine than it would have cost to adopt measures that would have prevented the accident. Therefore, since business value their profits, those that might have such accidents will now install adequate environmental safeguards. So, what does he say is the problem here with those companies that are possibly going to have accidents? What are they going to face? Fines. The government is going to put some very heavy fines against them for any kind of environmentally damaging accidents. So, he is talking here about those companies which are likely to have such accidents because they value their profits. What are they going to do? What is the conclusion? What's the claim? He is claiming that they will now install those environmental safeguards. Obviously, installing those safeguards are expensive. But in comparison to paying fines to the government, they would be comparatively or relatively cheaper, I suppose. So therefore, he is suggesting these companies are concerned about their profits, so they're not going to waste money paying fines. They will therefore install those safeguards. But the question asked is, which one of the following, if true, would most seriously weaken the argument? The argument is the companies are going to install the environmental safeguard. Which answer tells you that they are not? Which answer tells you they are not? See, this is one of those arguments which you can see as a parallel. If, for example, you take the fact that we take insurances on our cars. You know, when you buy a car, you have to take an insurance. On what basis is the insurance made? On the risk factor, right? Now, right now it is compulsory that we have to make an insurance. Suppose, let's say there is no such compulsion. It is left to you whether you want to take an insurance on your car or not. So when will you take an insurance? See, if I'm buying this car, I'll have to pay 20,000 every year to the insurance company to insure my car. Now, when will I take this insurance? When will I spend this 20,000 and take this insurance? When I perceive there is a danger of accident and I will have to spend more money paying the accident damages, isn't it? Based on that, I would say, let me therefore protect myself against that possible accident or fine or money I'll have to spend, and cover myself with this 20,000. But suppose I think I'm not likely to have any accidents. I think there is very less risk of having an accident. Then what will I do? Even though the insurance is only 20,000, if I have an accident, I may have to spend ₹1,00,000. I will still not take that insurance spending 20,000 rupees, isn't it? This argument is arguing, saying the fines are much more heavier than installing the environmental safeguards. So the companies will now install the safeguards because they are cheaper than paying the fines. When will the companies not install the safeguards? When they underestimate the risk factor, isn't it? Even though the installation is going to cost me less than the fines, the companies are still not going to spend when they think we are not going to have any such accidents, and therefore we'll have to pay the fines. So the question is, which one of the following, if true, most seriously weakens the argument? I'm going to go with option A. Businesses generally greatly underestimate the risk of future accidents. When they underestimate the risk of future accidents, they are not going to spend money in installing the environmental safeguards. A is most damaging it. Any options that you would like me to discuss? He says something like option D, Delhi, which is businesses treat fines that are levied against them as an ordinary business expense. See, whether it's an ordinary business expense or extraordinary business expense, it's an expense. So whatever it may be, they are going to safeguard themselves against those expenses. So D is not weakening the argument as such. The answer A is most damaging it.